Right, this is a knife I should have done a review on a long time ago. I've had it since early January, I believe. This is the 2013 SprintRun Spyderco C16 Goddard. This is a look if you don't already know. And yeah, this knife, I got it originally and I loved it. Straight out of the box, I felt that this would have been the great everyday carry tactical blade that would replace the likes of Cold Steel with their Voyager and basically all 3.5 to 4 inch tactical knives. I thought it would have been great. It's very slim, it's very light, and it's a very wicked and effective blade shape. But through use, I've become less enthusiastic about it, and sorry, but this won't possibly be the most positive type review out there on this blade. Right, starting off, this is, as I said, a SprintRun Spyderco that was produced in 2013. If you don't know, SprintRuns are just very limited quantities produced of a specific configuration of a knife. The Goddard was actually sort of like a reincarnation of an older design between a blacksmith, Wayne Goddard, and Spyderco a long time ago, and it's been sort of like recycled over the years in different configurations. Starting off with the blade, they've give us, well, I'll just be truthfully honest, the blade is my favourite part of this knife. It just is. First of all, the aesthetic beauty of it to me is it's unreal. It's outstanding. The semi-clip point focus, there we go, is beautiful. The profile, the grind is full flat grind, and we've got a beautiful beveled portion. There you can see the light sort of reflect in a funny sort of manner up here in the top of the spine. The actual cutting edge is great, but the blade to me is beautiful. It's made in Seki City, Japan, I believe. If it'll focus for you, there you go. Seki City, Japan, which I love, and if you know Spyderco, if it's coming from Seki City, I'm very glad about this. Get it in VG10. There's our deployment hole, which I found to be adequate. It's a little smaller than what we've come to expect as of late with Spyderco, but it's perfectly adequate for the knife like this. On the reverse side, we're given Wayne Goddard's signature. I actually quite like having that on a blade like this. I've noticed that my opinions on some things have changed as of late, whether or not it's a pocket clip or how a manufacturer does branding on blades, does their markings. I've noticed I've become a bit more critical on that, but with this knife I find it very adequate. But yes, this is a full flat grind VG10 blade, which Spyderco do very well. If you know anything, well, they're common middle of the run knives like the Delica and the Endura. VG10, full flat grind, high end, well, not high end, but very good best sellers for the company. But yeah, the edge retention on VG10 is really good. Oh, excuse me. This is getting a tradition now of every video I seem to burp, but anyway. Yeah, edge retention on VG10 is great. In my eyes, it's adequate. It's soft enough to sharpen easily, but hard enough and durable to Holding edge, well, through EDC use, I've actually got in my eyes, a substantial number of VG10 blades. A few of which, a few now that take the form in Spyderco. I've got a few from Makusta, which is a Japanese company, beautiful knives, and then I've been lucky enough to obtain a Felknaven S1 as of late. That's a fixed blade. Moving back to the Spyderco Goddard here, the finish is a beautiful satin. It's got a very slight level of reflectivity. There you can see a very slight silhouette of the camera there. And it's very beautiful. Personally, for this knife, I think I would have went more for a stonewash. I find myself really enjoying stonewashes, or even more the way Benchmade do it, with a satin with a very fine stonewash over it. It would help mask any scratches or wear. On the blade here, we don't get any jimping. It's completely slick. But for an aesthetical point, I think it's quite nice. I think the jimping that Spyderco do, if we look at the Mannix, beautiful knife, one of my favourites actually. The way that they do the jimping on it is perfect. It doesn't take away from the design of the blade. It doesn't draw attention to it. They've beveled the edges so it's not super rough, and the way they finished it, if you just glide over it, it doesn't snag, but whenever you dig in, it bites, which is perfect. But they didn't give us any jimping on this, and no forward finger choil, which again I think is always a miss. I'm a fan of finger choils. I know some of you aren't, but for me, it's always an added bonus. But the blade, we're given a 3.66 inches of a blade, so it's a little over 3.5 inches, which is a really fun blade size. I find it large enough for a harder use type blade, as in size wise, and yet it's not ungainly and cumbersome to use for a finer task. While I'm here talking about dimensions, I will just note that the overall length is 8.78 inches. The close length is 5.12 inches, and as I said, the blade length there, 3.66, and the weight is 2.9 ounces, which is feather light, beautifully light blade to have. But and if you're interested, it's a 3mm blade stock, if that's important for you to know. But from the blade forward, beautiful. It's one of my favourites, I think, for the blade. I just love how the blade is executed. Now, moving backwards. It's not the best in my eyes. The handle is made out of FRN, which I do enjoy. I find that it's adequate in traction. It's durable enough. It doesn't scratch. It doesn't seem to wear all that much. It will gather dirt, as most things do, but it's fairly durable. This particular knife doesn't have any liners. If I just get my little light, there we go. There you see it's just plastic, and there's all that FRN, which it's a nice change to have. Thank you, Olight. My Olight, great we like that. But anyway, yes, no liners, just all FRN, which is adequately strong for an EDC knife, for like a moderate use EDC knife, not like a super hard use like cold steel triad lock type blade. But the all FRN is fine for EDC in my eyes. Depending on the combination of materials and all, it could be a very strong material, but in my eyes with this knife, it's not quite rigid enough. It's just, my brother actually, now this is my older brother, sort of like coined this as a pruning knife. He thought it felt very much like a knife that you just pick up from like a hardware store in the garden section, just to prune your fruit trees and all. And to be honest with you, I'm sorry to say this, but I tend to agree with him. It's just not a knife that inspires confidence. But anyway, in the hand, you get plenty of real estate. This nice flare portion here coming up to the pivot point really helps lock your hand in. And if you look back to my initial video, whenever I got it, I mentioned that you might not need jimping here because your hand's fairly well locked in this, and I can't see you egress forward onto the blade from this sort of grip design. And we're given the old-fashioned volcano grip rather than the bidirectional texturing seen on more of the most modern Spydercos. Personally, I prefer the bidirectional because it bites into your hand more, but the volcano grip, I find is adequate. It does the job, and it's not super aggressive where it could like rub off skin and be an irritant. As you can see, the whole knife is this pinned construction. We've got a pinned pivot, which is a bit of a downer for me. I like being able to adjust my pivot. And then the lock bar pivot is pinned also. I think that's fine. The original Delicas and Enduras, to my knowledge, they were pinned. Funny enough, they're actually, I think, were a little bit before my time originally. But it's fine. I've got other knives that are all pinned construction and they've actually lasted pretty well. As I said, the texturing, it's the volcano grip, and it's adequate. I don't think it adds a super large amount of traction. Like originally I said in my initial video that this could be like the tactical knife that would decimate all others in what it offers for its size and weight. But over time, I just think that the execution of the handle really negates that now. The overall the silhouette of the knife is adequate. It's perfectly fine. If you look at Cold Steel with their Voyager, sadly I've had to box mine up and put it away. I'm in the process of moving house at the moment, but if you look at that, it envelops the hand. It locks your hand in forward and back. This one, it locks it in so it doesn't go forward, and the flare out to the rear does help in sliding backwards. But as of late, I honestly feel that this knife would have benefited greatly from the likes of the Manix 2's jimping. I think it would have just gave the knife an extra level beyond what it has now. The locking type of this knife is a very traditional basic lockback. Right. Yes, it's a standard lockback, and because it's that standard lockback, the deployment, I can get it out fast enough, but I need to use wrist. One thing I want to compare this to would be the Manix. Again, I know I'm comparing this to this particular knife, but it's a knife that I feel is very comparable, but no wrists required, and it flies out very well. But yes, wrist is needed to more of whip it out. And the lock itself, I feel, is durable enough. Lock up overall, though, over the use that I've had this knife and the general everyday stuff, plus testing. Actually, I'll talk about this now just before I actually tell you about the lockup. I started off by, as you know, I kind of like to try and have footage of me slicing very fine, like phone book type paper. and then I tend to move on up to like printing paper. And in both cases, because of the VG10 and the full flat grind, it went through both of them perfectly. It came with a really beautiful edge, it was a hair-shaven sharp edge. But then I had to move on to cardboard, which honestly in my eyes is the toughest task that this knife took well. Because of the thin blade, it sliced through very well. But then I moved on to try and do some general wood carving. And this is whenever I found an issue with the thinness of the overall knife. Basically, because it was so thin, whenever you're really locking in, pushing a lot of force through your hand into the handle, it just was very uncomfortable in the hand. With and without gloves. I've only got footage without gloves, I believe. But it was just very uncomfortable. It just, a lot of hot spots because of the narrowness. But after all that testing, I must be honest, it developed lock rock, I believe is the correct term. I don't know if you're able to hear that, but in the blades in this format, there's rocking movement going in that direction. Also, there's a very slight movement side to side, I'll be honest with you. But up and down, there is quite considerable. Like I can feel it and I can actually hear it by my own ear. And whenever I've got lock rock, that's something that always brings me personally concern. Which then really made me think whether or not it was a durable knife that would last you the test of time. And honestly, after using it and spending time with it, I don't know if it will or not. Moving on back a bit more, the pocket clip. It's just a very standard design of a pocket clip for, hang on, I'll close the blade up. Yeah, it's a very standard Spyderco design, that hourglass type format. There you can actually see it on the Paramilitary 2. Basically, it's just the exact same pocket clip that's been on a lot of Spydercos. Yes, you get the old-fashioned screw and male and female screw with a Phillips head, but a flathead screwdriver will take that off easy enough. There you can see it's ambidextrous left and right tip up carry. So lefties, if you do really dig this knife, yep, it's perfect for you. Actually, something I want to note, because it's a pin construction, I've noticed that I don't believe there's actually any washers in here. As far as I know, that the steel rubs just straight onto the FRN, which personally I don't like. It's not overly smooth. It's there's friction there, and I've been using lately nano oil, which is really nice, especially for like ball bearing pivot knives, I find. But it's just a disappointing sort of execution to a knife. There you can see we're given a lanyard hole. It's large enough to thread through hollowed out 550 lanyards. It does fine. Personally, I would advise that you put one on it, especially if you are for carrying this in more of a tactical format. It would just help with extraction. That's one of the things I've noticed also that is quite nice with this knife. It rides rather well. And if you look, this logo portion on the handle is perfectly located, like with most Spydercos, right underneath the pocket clips so that you don't get your jeans or whatever tore up over time. But yeah, overall it's an okay knife in my eyes. If you are in a location where you're allowed to carry it for defensive purposes, and you make that decision, of course, this would be a great knife because it's just that last minute, whenever the life's on the line type knife, you could use it then. But if you want to use it as a everyday carry type blade and get hard use out of it, I don't think it'll meet the needs that you really want. I would carry this particular knife. This is all hypothetical, so don't read into it too much. But I would carry the Goddard inside the waistband. That's how I would carry it. And then I'd have a small EDC blade. This is the Boker Plus Nano 42. It's a non-locking, which is a very nice UK legal option. I don't see people talk about this one enough. It's actually a really nice knife. It puts a smile on my face. But this is my Boker Plus Nano 42. This is the EDC knife. This would have then been the tactical knife. Oh, just so we note, this isn't the standard finish as it comes out of the box. If you look at the pivot screw, that's the colour it comes. I've actually sort of tried to bronze this a little. I actually quite like how it turned out. But yes, that is the blade system that I would go with, hypothetically, of course. But anyway, that is how I would orientate this knife. This inside the waistband with the EDC knife in the front pocket, or wherever it is you like to carry. But for the money that you pay over here, I know my friends at mindyourfingers.co.uk, they still have them in stock for a very good price. Actually, they're selling theirs for a little under £77. They're great people. Check them out, please. I advise you go there, especially if you're in the UK, of course. I don't know the availability of the knife on a much larger scale. After all, it was a SprintRun, and from my understanding, it's sold rather well. But keep in mind, it sort of fills that old-fashioned Spyderco Endura type hole where it's super lightweight and you get a lot for your money, like as in blade length. But yeah, I quite like it. I think I might have been a bit too harsh on it for what I've wanted it to do, and I think that might be my own prejudice. But I'll keep using it, and if I find anything different, I'll probably just annotate it or put it down in the description. But some competitive options for this knife that I honestly feel are adequate competitive options. They're all actually smaller overall, what I've got here, but as I've shown you quite a bit already in this review, the Manix 2. It's such a nice knife. Again, super lightweight. Adequate blade length. There we go. If we put it sorry. If I put it pocket clip up, it means I can actually get a nicer level place. Hang on, let me just, there we go. There you can see the Manix is a little smaller in both handle dimensions and blade dimensions, especially cutting edge. There you can, if I can get them, there we go. You see you are losing some cutting edge, but I feel this is a better knife because it truly locks in the hand better and really good jimping. Beautiful knife. Set the Manix up there. Now I'll keep you here. Another Spyderco knife, the Paramilitary 2. This is the CPM S30V. Oh, actually, I didn't note the Manix 2, this lightweight variation in the CTS BD1. For us people over here in the UK, that's probably most reminiscent to the steel that you'd probably find on your UK PK or Spyderco UK pen knife. So that's the same steel on this puppy. But yes, Paramilitary 2, S30V or CPM's S30V. Again, much better jimping because it actually has jimping. It's nice and sharp. Much grippier handle with it being G10. Very generous lanyard hole. And a much stronger lock with the compression. Well, I feel it's a much stronger lock. After watching the late Boy Scouts video, it's hard to deny that it's not a strong knife. if I move them butt to butt, I'll move it up a little. I'm sorry about this. I'm getting everything out of focus and everything. It's very comparable overall length. I believe the Paramilitary 2 is slightly smaller in blade length, especially in cutting edge. And as you've seen with the Manix 2 and the Paramilitary 2, that forward finger choil it makes use of the space. It's just being wasted on the Goddard. This is going outside of the Spyderco family and into Benchmade. Now you might say that this isn't this is a completely different class of knife, and you'd be right. It's a different price point completely. Different materials, very different blade shape. This actually is a S30V model. Warren Osborne design, modified reverse tanto, beautiful blade with an axis lock. There's a size comparison there. Again, much smaller, but I believe you actually get more cutting edge with the 940. There we go. Oh no, I was wrong. You get more cutting edge with the Goddard. But again, I really trust this knife. This is a knife that you could use as a hard use EDC knife, more of a high-end carry knife, and it could fill that role as a tactical knife if need be. Aluminium handles that have been anodized with a beautiful titanium backspacer. This actually will represent the 943 as well. Sadly, she's been boxed up and put away as well. But any of the Benchmade 940 family would be brilliant competitors towards the Goddard. For me, if I say to myself, yes, I will buy this knife again, it's the benchmark of whether or not I really love the knife. And I'm sorry, but I just wouldn't buy it again. It's the honest truth, I just wouldn't. I would much rather go for something else, especially in the price range. You could get, here in the UK, this is actually a very comparable as well in price. This is, on Mind Your Fingers anyway, this is going for £72. So in the price realm, very comparable. The 940 and the Paramilitary 2 are a good step up. You're getting better blade steels and I think all round tougher knives. But for the materials used, the locking type, which is very nice. I don't know if I'm not pointed that out. This is the caged ball bearing lock on the Manix 2. Very reminiscent of an Axis lock, but very strong in my opinion and my use. But hey, if you love it, cool. I'm glad you do. It's just one of those things that this didn't click with me completely. If it came out in a handle, if the blade was put into a handle similar to the Manix 2, oh, I'd have like 4 of them. I probably would. But because of the handle, I lost enthusiasm to use it. I had to push myself to use it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if I offended you with my opinion, I do apologise. But I do appreciate you watching. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. You'll get future reviews and my thoughts on other things. But I appreciate everything. Be safe, God bless, and I'll see you next one. Bye.